Welcome back. You're watching Today, and there are concerns as the theft of vehicles continues to rise in South Africa. Findings of the Tracker Vehicle Crime Index report shows that car theft spiked by 12% last year. Hijacking saw a 14% increase compared to 2021. Let's bring in Tracker's Chief Operating Officer, Duma Ngcobo, who's joining us via Zoom this afternoon. A very good afternoon to you, Duma, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. Tell us a little bit about this worrying trend. The research shows that more and more people are taking out tracking devices on their vehicles. At the same time, the crime of hijacking and car-related theft continues to persist and is in fact on the rise.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity. We are unfortunately seeing a significant increase in crime trends. I think you've already explained to your viewers the difference between 2021 and 22, where overall we're seeing a 12% increase. But I think if you look at our major provinces, such as KZN and Western Cape, that is also where we are unfortunately seeing an increase, with some 15% in KZN and another 14% in the Western Cape.
Let's talk about your cohort. So just tell us a little bit about this research and if it included the vehicles that have your services in terms of the tracking device, or was this an overall view of the trends across provinces in the country?
Correct. Thank you. We obviously track our specific car park, which represents well over 1 million customers who have a variety of vehicles on our database. We also track the South African Police quarterly crime index. So there is some correlation and relationship between the two. But importantly, what we are seeing a very, very sharp increase in hijacking incidents, accounting for some 57% of the total incidences, as well as 43% being theft, respectively. I think what's important therein is it shows a level of desperation, let's call it daredevilness, in what we're seeing in the numbers. The vehicle types we're seeing is your LDVs are still at the top of the charts, what we would call bakkies in South Africa, as well as your smaller sedans. We're also starting to see an increase in your e-hailing vehicles, which would make sense coming out of the lockdown periods, whereupon we saw people getting home deliveries and obviously using e-hailing services as well.
And you speak about this brazenness that has emerged over the last period that you're reporting on. It also speaks to the times in which these crimes are being reported. Thefts, for example, the research shows takes place in a particular time on a Saturday, and then there are hijackings that take place in broad daylight on a Sunday. Tell us a little bit about that time frame and the shift that we're seeing, because one would think that thieves come out in the thick of night when no one can see anything, but that has obviously changed.
Quite correct. I think the last time we reflected that the crime trends tends to be between a Thursday and a Saturday. What we've seen is a marked increase in theft rates on a Saturday. This would be where people are at their malls, watching sports, including school sports, or at their leisure, where what is basically happening is the would-be criminals taking advantage of those times. The hijacking as well, I think you mentioned Sunday, but Friday is a particularly sharp day between 1600 hours or 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. in the evening. So this idea that criminals wait for the cloak of darkness to commit the terrible acts is not actually true of the data we're seeing. I think the last important point that people seem to need to be remembered is that we are also seeing a very sophisticated criminal. We speak about carless entry keys or keyless entry vehicles, as it were. Those are the touch button vehicles where you don't use a key to basically opening the car. Unfortunately, those become susceptible to criminal syndicates as well.
But how? How are criminals able to start a car when it is a button push car and the key is not in the vicinity of the car? Has there been technology that's been developed by them around this, according to your understanding?
Yes, just to simplify it, between your car key and your vehicle, there's a messaging service that basically happens where the vehicle senses that the key is nearby and vice versa. That messaging that happens between the keys, between the car and the vehicle, excuse me, can actually be captured. That is what we know in the industry as a relay attack, or some people simply call it a signal blocking attack. What happens between these two is that you may have seen there's videos on social media doing the rounds where a person with a laptop looking back or a normal small suitcase where there's a signal capturing implement in there. They're able to use this to capture the signal between your vehicle and your key and mimic or duplicate that signal onto a completely brand new key and thereby fooling your vehicle into saying the original key is there. This takes literally a couple of seconds to happen, and unfortunately we're working quite hard together with other security partners to try and prevent this or to try and counteract its effects.
Yeah, thank you very much for those worrying, very scary insights this afternoon, Duma. That is Duma Ngcobo from Tracker, the Chief Operations Officer there joining us. A very worrying trend that we're seeing. So whether your car uses the traditional key or the stop-start button, as we've seen cars of today are using, you are not exempt from the criminality that goes on in different parts of the country.